and all around legend in our
Mm.
household. Welcome, sir. Good to have you back.
Honored, man. Always good to see you, Ron. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Yeah, you have a special place in my heart and in our house. My wife and I, she's fasting from social media for Lent, so she hasn't been able to bring you up lately.
Very
But
cool.
so often we're bringing you up and talking about what we're doing,
Mm.
and you made it really easy for us to make the decision to homeschool.
Oh,
We I really needed something different. Don't know if it was I was a boy or I have the skill of not taking orders really well and being strong-headed. I don't know
mhm.
if that was it, but I needed something different. She needed something different growing up, and then with our kids having that experience, it was like a no-brainer that I felt that they needed to be homeschooled. And my son now, he's 5, and we have blasted halfway through an entire kindergarten curriculum since December,
For
and he
sure.
is just rocking it.
For
2
sure.
hours a day, maybe.
Yep.
Some days not at all. Some days he goes and plays,
Yep.
and he has a math brain, which totally surprised me. It's like, where did this come from? You're just doing addition in your head. It's crazy, but it's so cool to see them unfold.
It's awesome.
And
Good
my
work.
daughter's 2.5, and she's right behind him, and she's so smart. And it's clear to us that this decision really made sense to us because we needed something different. And
Mhm.
seeing my son just pick things up so quickly has been really validating for him.
Oh,
And
so cool.
you're the founder of Apogee Strong, and you really encouraged us on this journey. And I want to open up to you and just hand that over to you as is, and really just tee it up for you to talk about what you're doing with Apogee Strong. Why?
Thanks, man.
Why even?
Well, thanks for that, man. I appreciate that, and that I love hearing stories like that from families that um, just understand that they're capable, and then they step into what really ends up being and I don't say this lightly, a courageous decision. And it's not because families are doing something that's so like, oh my gosh, this is courageous in a way of like, it's kind of dumb and it's kind of like, and it's going, it's just not culturally remembered that this is how it
Mhm.
always was. Right. And so it feels like everything is against you in a lot of different ways as a parent now when you take that into your hands. And what's courageous is getting back to what I think is always kind of been the truth that we just sort of lost as a society. And so good on you guys for stepping in. And if I ever get to have messages of people that go, hey man, something you said helped us, or some man, there is nothing better in the world. So thank you for sharing that, to come out. Um, really with everything we're doing with Apogee, it's not just the schooling and homeschooling piece. Everything we do is around building strong families. And it's really this concept of maintaining what I call default settings. I really think the default setting of a human is curiosity. I think the default setting of a human is intelligence. I think the default setting of a human being really is family oriented and wanting to. So I think a lot of our work is really just pointing people back to things they already knew and they've just been trained out of. And so, that's what I was seeing as a public school teacher and as a public school administrator. And so I started making my own schools because I wanted my family to have something different. And as that's just continued to grow, everything we've got with Apogees, we have things to make dads better dads, moms better moms, the teenagers more driven and not more driven. That's probably the bad way to say it. More focused on and more intentional on building a life they want, because I think
Mm.
every teenager is driven. It's just a matter of where are they driven to. Um, and we've got homeschool families and we've got people that are launching campuses to bring this to their community, and but all of it's different fingers, same hand of just getting back to what we believe is true in the first place. So it's been a fun ride, man. It's awesome seeing all these transformations take place. It really is, from the marriage side to the kids thriving side. everywhere in between. Kids reaching out, going, "Oh my gosh, I just started a business." Kids reaching out, going, "I just got my dream job," or "I just got accepted to this college or to this military academy," or parents going, we thought we were going to get divorced and now we're not, and we launched this school and now we have 30 families and I've got to get a big man. I didn't do the work on that. We just set up a container for people to come in, gave them a little bit of maybe some tips and tricks and a community around that, and then they're going off and leading, and I couldn't ask for anything better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really hits me that we're just really setting people back to factory settings.
Yeah, man.
It's always been there. We've forgotten that we've done this.
Yeah.
What? So you came from public schools. What?
Sure.
What made you feel like something was off, and what made you step out and start this?
Yeah, I mean that's both good questions, and they're definitely two different questions. There was some of it was an obsession with patterns, I guess, that I've had since I was very, very young. I think that was part of my default setting too, was being able to see patterns early. So I was the kid that got straight A's, but I also knew that I was playing a game. I knew that I was playing a school game. And it wasn't until I was an adult that I went, shoot, I did really well at the school game, but I don't know how to do anything as an adult. I got to figure this out. Right. And so there was a little bit of that was mixed in there. And then as I started getting into, schooling and from a traditional standpoint as a teacher and administrator, I started seeing like, okay, this is what this young person needs. This is how I could help this young man right here. But I'm being told that what's going to help him is this over here that has something to do with the school, because it's about perpetuating this system, not really perpetuating the individual journeys of all the people that are here. I could see that inside. So I was having to wrestle with that when I was going to work every day. So seeing some of that from a systemic standpoint really started to pull at me, started to eat at me. And so then I just started diving into, well, who's done things a little differently? What have they done instead? And it was pretty natural, trajectory at that point, of seeing it. It was my own kids that made me step up to do something, because once I saw all of this, I had to come to a lot of different, kind of come to Jesus moments of like, okay, well, do I want to, from a professional standpoint, continue to perpetuate a cycle that I don't truly believe in? I believe in so many of the people that are here, just not the system itself. I think the system is not designed in a way to make, so I have to professionally, do I stay there? And I know there's a lot of teachers and educators that wrestle with that because I talk to them on a daily basis. They'll send me messages on a daily basis. I see it. I know what you're saying, but 6 years away from retirement, but I'm tenured and I can't live, but my paycheck is, and I get, man, I get it. I get it. So I had to wrestle with that. And then I had my own kids and I had to wrestle with, and do I send them into this kind of system? Right. So it was two things I was wrestling with simultaneously. And that's why I went, okay, well, how do I solve both at once? Let me try to build something that I want them to go to and see if we can make something else around this. And that's how it all started. So it just comes to wrestling with those decisions. I think all of us get put in those scenarios in various forms. You come to these kind of, the forks in the road kind of thing. And you got to make a decision, for better or for worse. I made a lot of bad ones, for sure. But starting out, creating at least what I thought would be better for my family. I don't think you're ever gonna go wrong choosing to put your family first, truly.
Yeah, sometimes it's scary to break with
Sure.
what everybody else is doing too.
Of course.
Okay. Yeah, it's system perpetuation over helping the individual. So, how are you better serving the kids
Mm.
through Apogee?
Hmm. Yeah, the whole point is putting sovereignty back in a key focal point. And what I mean by that's another word I think culturally it maybe gets co-opted a little bit. But really, I want each individual, I want the parents, I want the kids to learn to design a meaningful life for themselves. And that design, right, the design that Rob chooses for himself is going to be different than the design that Matt chooses. Is going to be different. We might fundamentally agree on, hopefully we agree on some some standards and some morals and some values that are in there. That's a bigger conversation. But then how do we have the tools to then build the life that I want? Not everybody wants to live on. I live on a farm. Not everybody wants to live on a farm. That's not what I'm not. Everybody's got to be like me and live on a farm. Nah, that's ridiculous, right? Just like I don't want to go back to living in the Bay Area in the city, but some people might, and that's great. What I don't want is somebody going, this is the life I have, and I wish I didn't have it, right? I wish I had some other skill set, some other tool. Man, all those skill sets, all those tools, all those mindsets, all of that is available now. So now it's how do we process it? Are you dealing with a skill acquisition issue? Are you dealing with a mindset issue? What are you dealing with? Let us give you the tools to work on that so you can eventually move yourself forward. We are creating more leaders that eventually don't need us around, but hopefully there's a relationship where they want us around. It's kind of like what we do as parents, right? We want to raise these amazing humans who can build a fulfilling life for themselves, and they don't need us there at every moment. But God, we're blessed to be alongside them with that, right? We're doing the same thing to the best of our ability within Apogee for these families. So is that you launching a campus that takes care of your community? Is that you just homeschooling right there in your, in your home, and that's the focus? Is that, man, we want to come alongside you, give you the tools, give you a great network, and support you so that you ultimately are supporting yourself. That's it.
What does it look like to bring Apogee into the home? So what does the structure look like?
We've got, depends on where you want to come in. So we've got homeschool families that's their only touch point with us is homeschool. So, we're sending resources and projects for these families every month. And they've got a community that they're connected to. They've got live calls that they get on where the kids get on. There's live calls that the parents get on, so they get coached on how to do that well at home. Live calls that everybody gets on. And of course, as much as we can get together, as humanly possible, there we go too, right? So there's those touch points. There are the guys that are just so by them, they're husbands and fathers, and they're just solo. There's no other attachment point from their family. It's just them. I'll talk with some of those guys right after this call tonight, and it is the same thing. Here's a roadmap of some challenges every month. This month is a health and fitness focus. Every month we'll focus on something different, and we'll dive into some of the best minds in the world, some of the best books, some of the best leaders. What is the cutting edge conversation? What does this look like from a practical standpoint? How do you integrate this into your life? We'll focus on that for a month. The next month we'll go to something else, and it's all experiential. It's like, hey, tactically, what are you going to do this month? You got 5 different projects and challenges you're going to tackle, and then we're going to come back and debrief here and help each other out. So we do that for the dads. We do that same thing for the moms. We do the same thing for teenage young men, same thing for teenage young ladies. And then for people that want to bring a campus to their community, we show them how to do that from a business standpoint. And same thing, multiple calls, multiple coaching calls to make sure they can be the best version of themselves, bring it. So it's a pretty multifaceted organization. We got a lot of great coaches involved in that, but it's always experiential. Same thing on the campus. It's experiential. We want the kids to actually do something. The work at home, they're doing something. It's not homeschooling. It's not just about academia. What else are you producing? What else are you creating? What are the tools you are using? What are the tools you don't want to use? When do you want to use them? When do you not want to use them? I know you and I we're going to talk a little bit today about AI. That's a conversation we have quite a bit for campuses as well as homeschool. What does AI look like in terms of education for kids now? We're having that conversation, right? And so we work with every family on, here's what we think. What do you think? What does this family think? Let's all go try some things. Let's report back. Let's have some conversations in real time. Right? It's a community working through all these things together.
Mm-hmm. That community has to be so, I can't even think of the right word, but unimaginably helpful for any homeschooling parent, mom, dad, whoever. My wife rocks it. But there's some times where it can feel really lonely
Sure.
and she's got questions. And then it's like, well, let me go onto this Facebook page and hope that the people that answer
Right.
are also aligned with us and not
Right.
just trying to make school inside of their home and run the same structure.
Right.
So I love that there's that support for the kids. That's really cool. And for the homeschooling parent. How
Right.
does the campus fit into it? Like what happens on the campus?
I mean, some people don't want to, or I won't say this. I won't say they don't want. There are some people that I guess would be almost want to do more, and they want to run a business around. Yes, homeschooling my kids, but I also want to offer something to others, and I want to learn to build a business. That's part of my sovereign journey, is I want to bring something to my community. My community could use a leader that steps up and says, "Yes, I'm homeschooling my kids, but I'll also take all of yours, and we're going to build a community around this, like-minded, like." What we do from a global perspective is the up top here, and we're building this community. It's a microcosm of what we want them to do locally and physically and interact. So they're connected in that same way, man. They're everything I just talked about. They're building it out on campus, physical
Mm-hmm.
structure. Some of them do that 3 days a week, 4 days a week. Some of them doing it 5 days a week. Some are making an official private school. Some are making it a homeschool co-op.
Yeah.
They've got the sovereignty and freedom to do it how they want in their community, and we just help them do it to the best of their ability so they can have a sustainable culture and a sustainable business where they are.
Yes,
Their business,
everything that
not
they
ours. It's theirs.
so those who are called to it will create the campus and it's really an
Correct.
extension of everything that they need to be successful in the world with other people. I
Yes,
know
sir.
that we have really struggled to find co-ops that really resonate and work for us.
Yeah.
We already do so much outside. We already do so much actively
Yep.
that for the other people it felt like it was really novel, but for us it was like, well, we do this every day.
That's great. That's great.
So
And that, man, that's
campus wise, yeah.
so cool. I'm not to interrupt, but that's the level of self-awareness we want everybody to have. We are not, this is what everybody should do. That's not realistic. We do go, hey, this is what we think a good human does in terms of morals and values and the code we live by. Yes, we that's what we will go ahead and stand our ground on. But as far as how that is expressed through your individual journey, how arrogant would we have to be to say everybody has to do it just this way? God didn't even say that. So we're not saying it either, right? So that's the reality. So some people are going to express, you're going to figure out that, hey man, there isn't like a co-op that makes sense for you that perfectly aligns, and you guys take the reins and that level of sovereignty, like, we've got this, cool, go get it, you guys go rock that as a homeschool. There are some that go, hey, we feel that just like Rob does, and I want to lead others to that. I want to go build it. Cool. That's your calling. You go get it. Right. It's that awareness. So good on you guys for understanding where you guys are.
Mhm.
It's a big deal.
I had something. It just
I'm so
fled
sorry.
from my mind.
I'm sorry.
No,
Because I got all excited about what you said and I jumped in. I
it was
apologize.
great. It
It
was
was.
fantastic.
Yep. It was
Uh, so let's jump straight into the tech question. Then maybe
sure.
it'll come back. So how does tech fit in with the Apogee system with campuses? How are you guys navigating tech right now? I remember it was probably 1990
Yeah.
sitting in my mom took the extra step to get me into computer tots classes so that I
Hmm.
could learn how to work with computers when I was in I don't know, preschool. It's a very different era now.
Yeah, it is.
We've seen a lot of the benefits of tech. We also see a lot of the costs that we have to pay for it. How
Sure.
are you guys well, what do you see? How are you guys navigating that?
It's a big conversation, man. It's a big question. Um, I always want parents to think through all sides of it. What we tend to do as humans is we go, okay, tech. What do you think about tech? Here's what I think about tech. What do you think about tech? Here's what I think about tech. And what we'll fail to do is because we'll have those conversations. We'll go, yep, you and I agree, or yep, or nope, you and I don't agree. What we fail to do is really get down to the definition of terms and break that down. So, like, what does technology mean? Are we talking about just internet usage? Are we talking about video game usage? Are we talking about AI? And to what level are we talking about AI? Are we talking about social media? Are we talking about cell phones in general? Are we talking about smartphones? Are we talking, right? You need to have this level of conversation to see if you're even talking about the same thing in the first place. So when parents come to our campuses and they're like, hey, what's your tech policy? What people either love or hate is that we're like, hey, let's have a deeper conversation than that. What does that even mean, what you just said? Some people are like, oh, shoot, I never even thought of it that way. Some people are like, I just want the tech policy. I don't want to do the thinking. I want you to do the thinking for me. And those are probably not our people, right? Nothing wrong with it, just not our people. So we want to have a deeper conversation than that. Because what I found, which is super interesting, even in campuses where we're very intentional about tech use, meaning for most of our campuses, we don't do a lot of introduction of anything screens related for kids up through about 8 years old at all. Not a huge fan of integrating much of any technology up through that age range ish. It's a general range, and there's a developmental reason for
Yeah.
that, not an art,
Why 8?
right? Because there's a big brain jump that happens around 8. Uh, we talk about culturally. We'll say, oh well, human brain's not fully developed until somebody's around 25 years old. True, true, right? Prefrontal cortex hasn't finished forming until around then. Yes, true. Also, there are other developmental giant brain jumps that happen around 8, around 12, around 16. Those aren't just hormonal shifts. There's brain developmental shifts that are happening around there. So I'm not going to pretend to be the foremost expert on it, but I will tell you from a developmental standpoint, kids need, if we're going to try to optimize things as much as we can, kids need something a little different, and they're ready for something a little different at these various ages. So up through about 8 years old, dear God, play is the name of the game. That is how they learn best. We want to focus on that. We want to focus on character. We want to focus on morals. We want to focus on some of the early, like want to read to them, read with them. We're not going to say everybody has to read at 5, has to read at that. That's not real. That's not real. But oh my gosh, let's get them in love with books. Because if everybody's in love with books and barring any sort of disabilities going on, most kids by 8 then will be able to use phonics to be able to read relatively decently. So we take a look at that developmental side, and we give them a little bit of math, a little bit of math facts, some rote memorization, a little bit of that in there, because they can't comprehend the why. We're not doing word problems with a 7-year-old. They can't even understand abstract ideas. It doesn't make any sense to be like, here's why 2 + 2 = 4. Nobody cares. At that age, they can't get it. So just give them a little bit of that background knowledge to be able to scaffold with later on, and we call it good. Then when they get to 8 to 12, okay, cool. If they've got some of that basic understanding, maybe we'll use a tech platform like a Khan Academy, a little bit here and there to show some mastery and to test on some mastery. No big deal. And this is where the conversation gets interesting, because we'll use tech on campus for maybe something like that. And then maybe if they're starting to research something, we show them exactly how to research, how also not to use the internet. And that's it. Where parents start going, what's your tech policy? A lot of times the parents that are asking that are like, ooh, I don't like that they might have access for 45 minutes, on campus, because a lot of times they're giving them unfiltered access to everything else at home. Right. So then we have to have that conversation. What does home look like? Because we're very intentional. Here's what you can use the internet to research. And outside of that, you're not getting on the internet. You're not doing social media. We're not having cell phones on campus. You're not, like, we hold those boundaries. If parents don't, then it creates this weird little thing. Right. So when we're on campus, we're very intentional. It's used specifically for this. And developmentally, we're going to go for this amount of time, and then we're not touching it otherwise. How do you guys deal with it at home? Because that's also playing into that child's life. Let's have those conversations. So I know that's a way more, that's a whole lot more information, but we have to get that granular with it to do what's best by kids. So
Yeah.
that's how we're thinking of it.
Yeah, I think that we probably soft talk. Well, we'll go with the soft talk. We probably navigate it in a similar way in that it's what does he actually need? My son at this point
Right.
is 5. What does
Right.
he actually need? I've seen him pick up one of our phones and figure it out really quickly. I'm not worried about his inability to figure out technology when it comes time for him to do it.
Of course.
We do the is it the Brave and the Beautiful? I think
Yeah.
that's the name of it. They have a couple of iPad games for him to play with phonics and stuff like that, and he
Sure.
rocks those. Those
Yeah.
are really cool for him as an extra thing, not as a learning thing, but as an extra thing. I am curious. We get this all the time. Well, what about him not knowing how to use a computer? What about him not knowing how to use a phone? You said there's no cell phones on campus. I'm curious about that. Why did you guys make that decision?
So every campus has the ability to hold their line on that or not. That's up to them, on the campus owners. Most are saying we're not utilizing that, because if the kids want to create something with technology, there's computers available, and there's like that's all there. Now there may be some campuses with older age groups that go, hey, during this amount of time here, you have access to it if you need to have it, but it's almost never a need, and it's almost always a distraction. If somebody came to us and was like, hey, I run my business solely from this program on my cell phone, and I need, cool, we can figure out a way to integrate it, but it's almost never a need. It's almost always a distraction, right? They're there for a very specific time, for a very specific purpose. Parents can still get a hold of them for very specific things. It's almost always a distraction. So it's, again, we want to have that conversation, and be intentional about it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's really what it boils down to. Because what you said, the inability to, what if they're unable to use a cell phone? What if they're able? Cool, man. Your son is 5,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when does he need a cell phone? I mean, let's have that conversation, right? And let's say you're like, he needs it at 15. Let's say, right? I would make a case that that's still not true, but if you wanted to, cool, sounds good. That's 10 years from now. How different is this thing from the ones 10 years ago? And the thought of, well, if I had never used a rotary phone as a young man, I would never know how to use, is ridiculous, right? So this is part of what we've been trained to believe that we have to get out of, is that whatever system is available today is going to be the thing we need to master in order to be proficient in the next version of said system 10, 15, 20 years from now.
Mm.
That's almost provably false across the board. One of the skills that our kids are going to need more so than any other generation is the ability to unlearn something that is no longer relevant because of how quickly things change. And they're going to have to not be precious around certain things. So the thought that this leads to that, like, oh my gosh, if my child isn't reading at 5, he'll never read. It's that we've got different versions of that. Tech is a very clear, like, AI has changed so much in the last 6 months. We have no idea what this looks like.
Yeah.
So, do we focus on AI and trying to continuously keep up with the tool? Or do we focus on the human being and try to develop a human being who is grounded in all those things that we all know we want for our kids? Solid person, able to have great relationships, at peace with themselves, not in anxiety, the ability to learn, the ability to stay curious, ask all these questions. If I ask any parent what they want for their kids, it's versions of that. It's never, I want them to be build an open claw and pass calculus and pass it. None of that. ever. It's always that. So why don't we focus on that? Because then they'll grab the skills they need when they need it. Let's not pretend like we know what those skills are going to be. That's
Hmm.
arrogant, and it's bullshit. It's not true.
Yeah, you bring up cell phones. You bring up how do they relate to other people? And I have a few clients. Most of my work is virtual now, but I have a few clients that I still see in person here, and they they're in the general public all the time, flight attendant, and he he always stops me to tell me how impressed he is with the kids
Yep.
and what we're doing because they hold conversation with him and they stay with him and they
Yep.
talk to him.
Yep.
And sometimes they run up and they hug him, but sometimes they're like, "No, Bill, you can go home." And they they tell him stuff like that. They're not afraid to, tell him how they feel. He's
Conversation.
always astonished at how present they are with him and how they look at him and they can hold conversation. And we were
Right.
having this talk last week about socialization. He's like, "Don't you want them to be socialized?" And I was like, "Well, one, what does that mean?
Right.
What does that mean?"
Right.
And two, and you've helped me see this, when in the rest of their lives are they ever going to be in a room with only other people that are the exact same age and that think the same things as them?
And
Especially
right. And being controlled by somebody who's telling them what to think and regurgitate. And we call that socialization. And if that was the most effective way, well, here's good news, man. 92% of our population has come out of traditional schooling at some point. Do you look at 92% of our population and go, man, they're great to be around, great conversationalists, great thinkers, great. No, you don't. You don't. It's so much more than that, right? And so, yeah, it is such an interesting conversation if you stop to think about it. But again, the cultural indoctrination runs deep, the propaganda runs deep. So I get why people have that fear, but good on you guys, man, because that's the reality. I love telling people that I love it when people meet my kids and they're like, "What do you do? How do you discipline them?" I'm like, "Man, we've got a system in our house that teaches them how to be disciplined people. I don't have to discipline them." Like, why? But they are so confident. It's because they're competent and they've been
mm,
right because they know that they can actually do something and create something. It's because they've allowed curiosity to maintain. They're not arrogant. They are curious about who you are and what you like. They're curious on how they can serve you and what kind of relationship you can build. Like we lean into those default settings so they don't have anything not to be confident about. They don't have anybody distracting them. They're not being distracted with a bunch of stuff that doesn't matter. They're not playing video games in their spare time. They're not playing like
mhm,
we are just that's what parenting I think is supposed to. And by far, we're not perfect parents. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. Period. They're not perfect kids. No such thing. Period. But man, when you have the right environment and you keep out the wrong environment, because those are not the same things, when you can do both, I think everybody turns out amazing. Like, I really do. I don't think God messed it up. I think everybody turns out amazing.
mhm.
It's up to us to
Yeah,
keep the right way, you know?
I really feel like if we give our kids, if we give ourselves, and this is so much of my work with men too, if we give ourselves just the opportunity to unplug
Yeah.
and to come back to factory settings,
Yeah.
we're capable of so much and people
Amen.
turn out and their lives turn out really well if we can do that as a matter of practice.
Amen. Amen.
I think about you brought up how the teachers are telling them what to think and
Yeah.
you're going to be in a room of people who are we're told to think the same things as you. We were talking about this the other night about socialization feels to me as if it's creating the culture. It's telling you this is the culture that you need to be a part of. This is how you need to be in order to be part of the culture. And I was sitting and I was thinking, I was like, I think about the movies of the 80s and how the
Mm-hmm.
burnout really came out of this.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big thing for us in high school. It's like you could be the burnout guy, you could be the cool stoner guy, like nothing's not that big of a deal. And I was asking the question, where did this come from? And did this exist prior to that? Was
Mm-hmm.
this always a thing, or is this a thing that came out of the culture of
Yeah.
high school that was created through the 70s and through the
Right.
80s.
Right.
And is that what I want in terms of socialization? For us, the answer is no. I don't want that. Jenna
Right.
was talking about the kids. She teaches dance to some girls in the evenings, and she was talking about how, and this isn't the girls at the studio, but she's heard about some kids as early as fifth grade that are talking about going to parties and there's going to be drugs there, and some of the kids are having sex. And well, how do I navigate that? And is this the socialization? Is this the culture? I don't want that for them.
That's exactly right. The culture of young people now talking about what gender they are, and the various gender dysphoria, and um, I, like there's these things didn't exist. They didn't exist. The relentless conversation about anxiety. All of these kids believe they have anxiety. That wasn't a conversation when we were growing up. I'm not saying people didn't have anxiety. I'm not saying anxiety can't be a real thing. What I'm saying is the focus on it wasn't there. So you didn't have that coming up as much. You didn't have the gender dysphoria. Like we had tomboys, we had guys that we thought were a little softer. Okay, cool, sounds good. But I don't remember anybody being like, I think I'm a different, like that wasn't a thing, right? Culturally, we've made it a thing. And so now our kids are absorbing that and going, okay, I guess maybe this is something I've got to contend with. I guess, emotional health is something I've got. Do I have it? Do I not? Where is it? Is it in my pocket? Like, do I have, right? It's like we're we're just throwing all these things out there, and our kids aren't ready for it because it's not part of the default setting. So they're just like, how do you navigate that? So I don't think it is socialization to throw your kids into that just because the world's talking about it. Just like I don't think it's sheltering to intentionally go a different direction. It's not sheltering. I'm intentional about who I talk to in my life too. If I didn't like Robert and I didn't think he was a good guy, I wouldn't, no ill will, I just wouldn't talk to you. Right? Like we wouldn't have this conversation. I'm intentional about who I talk to and who I don't. I'm intentional about who I spend my life with and who I don't. I'm going to do the same for my kids. That's not sheltering. It's living an intentional life. That's my version of socialization. I want to do what I want to do with the people I want to do it with. And I want to pour into them, and I want to help the people that I want to help. I can't save the world. I'm not going to. I'm not going to get along with everybody. That's okay. I'm going to build my tribe, serve my tribe the best I can. That's what socialization is supposed to be.
We get the question all the time with the sheltering part. Aren't you afraid that they're going to be sheltered? Theo's so innocent. He plays so innocently. He's 5, playing with his 12. Tucker's a year old now. Wow, I said 12-month old. No, he's a year. Uh, and his sister. And he's gonna be sheltered, but he's gonna be. He's a 5-year-old. He's gonna do what 5-year-olds want to do. When he's
Yeah,
10, I want him to do what a 10-year-old's gonna do. When he's 12, I want him to do naturally what a 12-year-old needs
right,
to do.
right.
Even if you think that that's a little bit innocent, I don't need him exposed to all the
Yeah.
stuff that's way too advanced for his little brain, who
Huh.
doesn't have the filters to be able to say that's too much for me.
Hmm.
I don't need him exposed to that stuff.
Hmm.
We'll navigate it as we approach it. We'll build. You brought up character, values, morals, leading up to that, so that he has some kind of framework with how to navigate this stuff. I don't want him exposed to that, but that's on us.
That's right. It's not So I always like to give this. I like a lot of times when we're talking about our kids, and I mean this cold. I don't just mean my kids. I'm talking about all of us talking about our children. When I have conversations with people who are navigating, and again, usually from a place of a really good place, and also maybe a place of fear of like I don't want my child to be sheltered, so they're trying to navigate this whole like I think I want to homeschool, but I don't want to shelter. Do you feel like you're sheltering your kid? Right? You get some of those conversations too. I like to um, take some of the conversations around children, and I like to push them back on adults and use a metaphor that puts them in that scenario, because sometimes sometimes for some people it allows them to see it from a different perspective. And so when somebody's like, you gotta put them in, public school, because you got to show them that the world isn't fair, and you got to show them that there's bad people so that they're able to handle the fact that there's bad people. I like to ask parents, like, okay, cool, do you, to remind yourself of that, intentionally put yourself in prison to go, hey man, there's a bunch of bad people here and I have to know this and I have to be around them, because that's the only way I'm going to navigate this life, is if I go put myself with a, of course, that's a silly thing, right? Like, you are intentional about who you're around and who you're not, because you've got this rooted moral standard that you want to uphold. And so, like, what if we did the same thing for them? And the whole, like, well, life's going to be hard. Sure, life's always going to be hard, but it doesn't mean that you give up and just go, I'm going to, like, do you want to try to be intentional about what you're doing, or do you not want to try to be intentional about what you're doing, or you just go, everybody, like, I like to have those conversations. And then the innocent part that you mentioned, what people don't understand anymore, and I think culturally, I think we used to understand this more just because of the nature of how life was, that innocence piece. Our kids can still maintain a sense of innocence and do amazing things at the same time. They're not mutually exclusive. So, my oldest daughter is 15 right now. She's getting ready to go back to work at this camp she worked at last summer. She works all year long, but during the summers, she works 50 to 60 hours a week at this one camp in particular. So last year, she was 14, working 50, 60 hours at this camp, 100 plus employees at this camp. She was 14. The next oldest was 18. And then everybody else was in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. So everybody in her department, there's like 12 of them in her department, were 18, in their 20s, 30s, and then like their boss was like 60. So she's working full time. Her feedback from her boss, the 60-year-old, was, hey, stop leading so much. You have to let some of these college girls do some of the work because they just go to you for everything. By the end of the summer, like, my 14-year-old was leading the charge there. She had college age people reporting to her. And it's not because, again, she's some sort of savant. She's not. She just goes, I know what I'm doing. I'm going to ask the questions I need to ask, and I'm going to do the work. I'm going to work as hard as I can. And I'm going to try to serve everybody while I'm there. Like, she just got the right mentality around it. A mature mentality is really all it is. Of course, she makes mistakes, but she's a mature mentality. So she can do that and lead other people who are much older than her, and then come home and sit down and be silly and play Legos with her little brother and look like a child. She's got the ability to go everywhere in between and be completely comfortable. That's a pretty rad skill set. And I think everybody has that. I don't think she's special in that regard. Everybody has that. Shouldn't we protect that? Shouldn't we protect that ability for our kids? Maintain the innocence as long as you can, but it doesn't mean they're not going to do amazing things that far outshine other people around them too. I think we're built for that.
It doesn't, yeah, it doesn't mean that they're going to be incompetent in the things that matter. They
I
may
don't.
be incompetent in, well, getting high and having
Sure.
sex and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
it's
That's a,
not in the things that matter.
yeah. Why is that a requirement for childhood? That's so, you know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I don't know. Maybe
Yeah, it
I'm,
makes me think of the '80s burnout. Where did this come from? All over again.
yeah,
Is this? Did we create this archetype? This is what we wanted. I don't know.
right. Yeah. Hmm. It's a good
So I want to
conversation.
get into the AI piece. You mentioned
Yeah.
Claude.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
have
man.
some clients who are just on fire for it and who
Totally.
have uh, brought up that I could get Theo involved in this now and teach him how to use it now, and he would be so ahead of people when he's an adult. And when I use it for research purposes
Sure.
and as an editor at times, it can really suck me in for something that should take minutes for hours.
Sure.
And then I come out and my brain is not totally here.
Yeah.
Or maybe my brain is here, but I'm not here.
Right. 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 Right.
And luckily, I have a system of practices to help get me back into my body, to
Yeah.
get back into analogness and unplug from that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a lot of people don't.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, what are you thinking about when
Yeah.
you approach AI?
Hmm. It's a really good question. And I will, thinking is the correct term, because I am not at a place where I feel like I've got a definitive, here's what I know, here's what I believe, here's where things are going. So in other words, since I know it's going here, we need to go. I don't know that. So I am still working all of this out myself. I don't know if the right question that I think predominantly people are asking, or I'll rephrase it. The question I see most often is AI versus analog related, and I wonder if the better question is a human with agency versus a passive human,
Mm,
because AI, at least as I understand it now, and I've used it a little, not to the extremes that some have, but it's leverage in a lot of ways, right? Leverage tends to amplify who the human already is. The internet did the same thing. We've had this increased access to knowledge. I mean, we've had every bit of knowledge at our fingertips now for a long time. We've already had that with the internet. AI not even being a thing, we've had access to all of this knowledge that previous generations did not have access to. And what did it do? Well, it created, for some, a more intelligent, capable population who used it well. And for others, they got more distracted, because
mm,
every tool has the ability to be a positive one and a negative one, right? So to me, AI is going to do the same thing. You're going to have people that use the tool well to do some amazing things that we've never seen before, and you're going to have people who it becomes the thing that destroys them. I think that just makes sense. If you're looking at patterns of humanity, it's that, right? So AI really is leverage. Leverage amplifies who you already are. So if we're looking at our kids, if they don't have a specific knowledge of who they are and what they're excited about and the moral ground they stand on, then maybe for AI, at this current phase, they become prompt typers, but they're not thinkers. Kids that have a specific knowledge could maybe use AI right now as a multiplier somehow. But if a child hasn't struggled to learn how to think, AI is not going to make them smarter. It's going to make them continuously replaceable, because they're just going to be chasing, this game. So
mm.
um, I won't say that it's going to make people better educated, because I think education should create people that can solve interesting problems. AI removes friction, and which can be good, but it can also remove thinking, which is bad, right? So if AI is doing the work, what's the student actually learning to do? It's this interesting balance.
Yeah, you bring up education. It's going to make them more educated. And I think, what is the Latin for education? Educare? Is it to draw out?
To draw
To
out.
draw out, to draw
Yeah.
out their fullest potential. And we talked about this last time, but
Yeah.
that's our role. That's a
Yeah.
teacher's role. Is Chat GPT, is Claude, is
Right.
Grok going to draw out their fullest potential
Right.
or not? Is it going to
Right.
is it going to draw their potential into it, and are they going to get trapped in there
Right. That's
if
exactly
they
right.
don't have the filters, the values, the character, the
Right.
skills to
Right.
be able to say this is too much?
If they don't have that foundation, right? So then we start taking a look at that earlier conversation we were having around child development, because from an early standpoint, that pre-8, if we're going to use a blanket number, children need attachment, they need human presence, they need real world interaction. They do not need early tech of any sort that gives them overstimulation and disconnection. They don't need that. They don't need more information early. They need more connection early. So if screens are becoming a replacement early on, like we're not setting up for a foundation to actually do well later. And from a physiological standpoint, scientifically proven at these young ages, to like if you've got this phone based or tablet based childhood, you are more likely to have anxiety and depression. And that's not a because your parents suck thing. That's a physiology thing. It is fit. You said yourself, you get on there too often, you come away and you don't feel like you're in your body. There's physiology associated with that, man. Like that's it. Like you are literally decreasing, the dopamine storage in your head. I don't know all the physiological, nature of it, but you're depleting that and it's got to take time to replenish. And like you are physiologically draining your motivation. So we do that to kids. We give them this adult level technology before they've got adult level brains. And of course, we're going to see some issues. Got to think through that.
I think the statistic before the advent of AI was that we have more access to more information in one day than we used to have in 100 years.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
now it's
Right.
multiplied exponentially. What do we do with that? And I think back to when I was in high school, I didn't have this thing with a map on it in my pocket. I could go back to Batavia, Illinois, and I could get and you could take me anywhere in that town,
Man.
blindfolded, you could drop me, and then you could tell me to go to the ice rink and I could get you there.
Man.
Here, no way. I've
Isn't that
used
wild?
this and I try not to use this. I
Bro.
have lost so much of my directional, my navigational
Oh,
skills, and I worry, and I don't like worrying, Matt.
dude.
I don't like worrying. I worry about, well, what other skills are we atrophying?
Totally. Totally. You're calling me out on this because I was thinking about this the other day. We've been out here now in this area for 4 years. We've lived out here, and I still struggle to get so many places that we go to relatively frequently, just because it's a different sort of back roads and sort of like I still struggle with it, and I've just relied on this. And I thought about that the other day where I was like, man, you could drop me. I have not lived in same Vacaville, California, man. I haven't lived there since I was 17. But if you dropped me anywhere there, I can get anywhere else. Piece of cake, right? Mm, what else am I losing?
Mhm.
What else am I losing? What other foundational skills have I allowed to erode? What am I allowing to never be developed for my own kids because I'm relying on like we've got to think through those things as parents. I'm not saying I've got all the answers. I'm just saying those are really good questions.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we have to be aware of. You
Mm,
you just like going to the gym, you stop going to the gym, the skills and the strength or the
mm,
conditioning, whatever you're working on atrophies. It's the same thing with these
yes, sir.
skills, and we don't even know what the cost of that is going to be yet. I think it was Jordan Peterson over a year and a half ago because he's been on the mend, sick,
Yeah.
healing since last June. I think it was in a year and a half ago. He was talking about speaking with, I think it was a university student that he had known, he hadn't seen in a while, and they sat, I think, in a cafe, and the student was struggling with his words. He couldn't get full sentences out.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how he was struggling because he was using so much ChatGPT to
Mm,
put sentences together and to be able to speak without it.
mm,
And I worry about things like that. And I
mm.
notice that with myself when I lean on it with editing too much. What do I think about this? And how would I even write a sentence about this? I know
Right,
people that use it to write emails and write
right,
letters.
right,
And well, then
right.
it's a question.
Oh,
Well, how do I even do that?
totally. That's such an interesting example. I feel like we'll see more and more of that. I haven't really thought that particular angle through, but I don't see how we won't see more than that, more of that, where people are going to lose their ability to be articulate in any fashion if it doesn't get given to them. That is going to be wildly interesting. Um, my again, I'll just use my kids as an example, because there's pros and cons. there's things that people will struggle with. I don't struggle with these in particular, but there's things that people will struggle about. So like my daughters taught themselves to read at 4 and 5. We just read two, read with.
Mm.
They were both, I mean, and just got after it. And so like they've both written books at this point. They both, so like they're wildly articulate. They're avid readers. They are avid writers. There is a lot of thinking that goes on, and they know why they believe what they believe because man, they're writing so often about it. They're not using AI for any of that. They're just using that, right? My son wasn't as he was interested in being read to and having those stories, but he wasn't as interested in taking up the reading for himself. He didn't learn to read until he was about 7 and a half. Everybody, people were very worried at that point. I was not worried a bit. This is a normal developmental thing. And now he's 10. He reads at least a book a week. And by a book a week, I
Mm.
mean 300-page novels, at least one a week, and is wildly articulate, um, and has an opinion on everything and will give you a reasoning and a rationale. And so now he's just getting to the point in the next year or so where we're going to have him start focusing a little more on writing things out because again developmentally right about 12 is when abstraction starts to make sense and you can start to see some patterns and some pattern recognition starts to be a little more fluid. So that's when I really, so people worry, they're like, oh, you got to get him writing essays right now. No, I want him to keep reading and having great conversations so he knows why he thinks what he thinks. I want him to work through all this stuff. Then we get to about 12, he's going to start writing through this. And guess what? At that point, I imagine there may still be some misspelled words and that may still be a thing. And then we'll go ahead and fill that in on the backside. Whereas schools like, nope, got to read at 4 because otherwise you're not going to be ready for kindergarten at
Mm.
5. We got to diagram sentence. I still can't diagram a sentence, by the way. Diagram a sentence. We got to give them a spelling list and spelling tests. And we wonder why we have a whole bunch of non-thinkers that don't like to read and are very inarticulate. Got to flip that.
Mm.
And AI is going to have a lot of people just jumping all of that to get. And I'm so curious, not in a good way, of where that goes. I don't think it goes
Mm.
anywhere well. I think you brought up something very interesting right there.
We had our first to move into the I think it was to move into the kindergarten curriculum. We had our first assessment just to see where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And my wife was like, I don't know how he's gonna do it. I'm kind of worried about it. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
let's just see. And he just rocked it. He just rocked it.
They're not, those assessments are not anything magical. They're not
Hmm.
anything extraordinarily difficult. They're not anything that really tells you anything about the person and what he or she will go do. They can do extraordinarily well on those and turn out to have all kinds of issues. They can do not very well on and turn out to be the most amazing humans. Um, but what we have found too is without ever focusing on them,
Hmm.
ever, and without even having a very specific quote unquote curriculum that we're diving into, kids will go, oh, this, okay, cool, and they'll do it,
Yeah.
and they'll be done, and they won't even think about it. Won't be any anxiety about it. They'll do just fine with it, and then they'll also have this understanding that it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah. It was really cool to see how we didn't teach to it. We didn't think about it at all. We just came to it, and it was like, well, I guess we're gonna do this and see what happens.
and they're just fine. Yep.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. All right, man. I think we're coming up on time. I want to talk character, values, morals, but
Sure.
I want to respect your time here. So I think that we'll wrap. Maybe we'll have another conversation about character, morals, and
Anytime,
values
man. Glad
in the
glad to do it.
future.
Glad to do it, man.
Any parting piece of advice? Anything that we didn't hit that you want to leave people with today?
I mean, the reality is, I think this has always been true. I just think it's becoming more and more true. Um, the future will belong to those who can think clearly and who can act, very decisively, who can use the tools wisely and are intentional about their network. I think that's always been the thing. Um, so the questions are always who are the humans
Hmm.
that we're building, and I think we just need to remember that because it's we're raising these kids in a world where answers at this point metaphorically physically answers are cheap and free really at this point. judgment has never been more priceless.
Mm.
Right. So that's what I would just encourage people to lean in. Um, if if you can't create something meaningful without AI or any other tool, then these tools aren't going to make you make anything meaningful with it. So just got to think through what it means to be human still.
Yeah, yeah. I consistently make the distinction between human being, which is what we're talking about here, and human doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if we rely too much on, well, fitting into the socialized system and the structures and the technologies and hitting the requirements for testing, then we're just human doings, just check boxes.
Mm-hmm. That's it, man.
Mm.
That's it.
All right, man. Where can we find you? Where can we find Apogee?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity to chat and great topics, man. And appreciate the work you're doing too. I'm easy to find, just at my name, most places. Apogee is Apogee Strong, APOGEE strong.com, or at Apogee Program on socials. And feel free to reach out if there's any way we can help a family. Great. If there's somebody that I think we do a better job for what exactly it is you need, I'll tell you that too.
Amazing. All right. Thanks for being here, Matt.
Thanks. Honored.
Thanks everybody for listening today. As always, you can always shoot Matt a message. You can shoot me a message. If you have anything that you need help with, shoot me an email, rob@robbelljr.com. Super simple. And have an uncommon day.